Good time. Adjustments to agenda, I have none. Do you?
I don't have any, no.
Conflict of interest disclosure? I'm not sure what that.
That's a new item. I actually just put it on this agenda. The board had, select board, if I were to put that on all committee agendas in the universe.
Just in case we were voting on something that
Just
we
in
were
case,
having a
yes.
conflict on.
Exactly.
Okay, understand. Okay. So just to summarize, that would be if we have a personal or professional conflict with an interest that we're voting on. Okay. Review and approve meeting minutes, April 20th, 2021.
All right, just make sure everybody was here. Maybe I just didn't date this one.
What happened in front of me? I apologize.
I think I just didn't date this one, maybe,
May 17th.
on the top. I'll look at it, because I have it saved as something. Okay. Who was here for the 20th? Okay, all three of us were. Make a motion to approve the minutes for April 20th, as presented with any corrections.
A second.
All in favor?
All in favor? All right.
3-0.
Approved. May 3rd.
Let's see who's here.
Yeah, there's one
Just me and you.
in here. Oh, that's not.
So,
Okay, so we, it wasn't an official meeting.
no, it wasn't an official meeting. How do we do that?
I would just accept them as the notes of your meeting. They're not official minutes, but just notes of your discussion.
Okay.
So I'll put them as actually notes. I'll make
So-
an adjustment to them, saying notes.
All right.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve May 3rd meeting minutes to be reflected as notes instead of minutes.
Second.
All in favor? May 17th, we're gonna push off.
I'm gonna table, we're gonna table that one because I just need to make sure that I date that, but I'm also gonna do the same thing and say notes.
Why, because it was just you.
It was just me and,
Right.
all right, so I'll get those corrected.
There is no public to speak that I can see. Any correspondence, Joe?
Nope.
All right. Old business broadband update. So this has been moving along, actually it's starting to pick up and be, I feel like we're on a good track to get some things done. We've had multiple delegate meetings. We're gonna have another one tomorrow. They've basically been weekly. Last week, we met with Consolidated and issued a whole bunch of questions from their proposal to make sure we understood what their proposal was, what our risks are, et cetera, et cetera. We recommended to present to all of the selectmen and the assessors, and we're working on creating an agenda and a meeting for that, which hopefully will be in the next week or two.
That hasn't been scheduled.
No, it has not.
Okay. And then, so to catch everybody up to where we are on speed, because we still are actively pursuing an April 2nd timeline for a bond for this project. We also are looking at, thank you, did I say?
August.
August 2nd, or 3rd, or whatever the date is in August that we're going for, but there's a lot of things that need to happen. For instance, a public presentation that would have to happen in July, where we can let the public know what the proposal is, what the responsibilities are for, et cetera, scheduling special town meetings, and so forth. There's also the potential of maybe not going for a bond, but going for a bank type loan, construction loan versus a bond. So we're looking into all of those pieces. We'll be meeting tomorrow to review the presentation to the selectmen and the assessors. Answer a few more questions on the bond versus bank. And anything else, Laura, that I missed?
So is there pushback on getting a meeting set, or it just hasn't been done?
It just hasn't been set up yet.
Okay.
So I think we met last Wednesday, I was off Friday and yesterday. So
Yeah.
I'm just getting back in.
Okay, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? I know Laura and I and Joe have been in all these meetings, but do you have any, okay. Any concerns? Okay. The banner update, as you can see behind you, the banners are in, the brackets, all the pieces are here, so now it's just putting them up. So that would be wonderful to know what the plan is for that.
So the plan is to leave the sports flags up until the end of the year, which is upon us, and then begin with the welcome signs. The welcome banners go on the outsides of each downtown location, so downtown Rangeley and then in Plaza, welcome ones will go up, and then we'll fill in as we take out the Lakers signs. We'll replace those with banners. So the American flags will be up interspersed with the banners. The banners are kind of our first, as most of you know, I think most of you know this already, but they're our first group of display banners for the downtowns. Our plan going forward is to maybe interject some other material in there, maybe local artist material, special interest type of stuff. We'll probably do that by Survey Monkey or something like that as we progress over the next year or two. But these are very nice banners. I think they came out nice, and I think it's a good introduction to having the banners on the poles. I know it's something that's been in the works for a while. I think this will be good. So the plan is to get going on that next week.
Okay, so do you have like an end date, like a date, like by, yeah, thank you. July 1st, they'll all be up, or do you? What?
Yeah, 4th of July would be a deadline, yeah.
For the fireworks one?
Mhm.
Right?
For all of
I think
them, for all of them. We could get them all done by 4th. Because every season, well, maybe not every season, but at least 3 seasons, we're gonna be trying to switch some of these out, like and take Lupin out and put in something, more folly and stuff like that. We do, as far as I'm aware, the money was already used to spend for these, what we've got. And then there was money put into this budget that just got approved for the next year for decorations. And that would be the majority of the decorations, I believe, is this. Versus like buying more Christmas ornaments or things like that. So we should be in a good financial position to get a good set of, 3 or 4 seasons and see how it works with maybe some lighting potential for the winter time period, etc. Is that what?
Yeah, that's kind of the plan going forward. This is the first set of banners that'll go up. I envision these being up probably till late summer or something like that. And then in the meantime, we're gonna have to figure out if we want to put something up for fall. I know we have the Oktoberfest flags that will probably replace some of the banners around that time of year. And then winter, like you said. So we should probably be thinking about that now. What do you want for winter? What do you want for?
Yeah, no, we had picked out of a catalog, but what happened with that was we had some really good ideas come forward about that, and we can get generic, leaf pictures and things like that, but the idea was to try to do local artists renditions, and like we were talking about Kyle would maybe volunteer, and then there's some legality issues. I think you just want to make sure that that's okay to have that happen, and we don't hurt anybody's feelings, but if we could make it fun, it could be an interesting, thing through the course of the different seasons about people's different artwork, and have to be a little bit more creative.
How do you get the artwork on it?
Well, that's what they would do, is they would print them just like they did these.
Right, these
So
are
we
all
gave them
custom.
photos.
Yeah, these are custom. Now the images are not custom. They're generic images that the company owned, the company that we worked with, so we don't have to worry about royalties and things like that. The concern with having someone else agree to put their images on there, we want to make sure that we either have a way to provide them for payment of royalties, or we get a disclosure from them if they're not looking for some type of payment. So that's just,
But it seems like if it's custom, we might have to do that pretty quick.
True.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know the answer to that, because when
this was a quick
They
turnaround.
had those stock photos.
right, but if you sent them the right dimension, the photos in the right pixel or whatever it is,
Kind of like a yearbook.
yeah, I'm not sure if it would delay too much.
But I think we should work on it. It's mid-June, so probably, in July and August, we should work on what you want to have up there for fall. And then winter will be right behind that. I think you're right, Laura. The turnaround time is not tremendous. It's a couple of
Making a
weeks.
decision.
Yeah. Yeah, getting them printed takes a couple of weeks. Getting them up, as you know, is going to take another couple of weeks here internally.
Well,
It's
but
gonna
if we
go-
do a
We need
survey
to
monkey
back
with put 10 pictures up and say, rank your favorite, then that might be a little longer too, so. All right, so July,
Yeah, if we plan to change these, in September, sometime after Labor Day, they can come down, and again, we can have the American flag, the Lakers, whatever else we fill in for a month or so, and when the new ones come in, put the new ones up and get into winter. So it sounds like we need to work on fall and winter next. I'll talk to Keith about that. Now, I think Survey Monkey's a good idea. Do you think we should put out something on our Facebook or website requesting people to?
well, what I think you should do is when they go
When they
up,
go up, it's.
I think you should say,
Oh, yeah.
please let us know. Well, yeah, then I think you should say, look, I hope you guys enjoy
Okay.
the new banners. We're working on some programming for future banners. And then like maybe a week later, send another post out calling all artists, and photographers.
Okay.
Show your pride in your community, because we don't want to pay, right? So we
Right.
don't wanna-
To enter a contest to see if you could be a part of the next. And then you just what?
Then you would say, send your images,
The
and then
town
we'd have to
attorney
have a
sign
vote.
off, have a document for them to sign off on there.
Right.
I mean, I would be okay if their name was printed on there somewhere.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, it's not, well,
Courtesy of,
you know how they basically do their little autograph thing
Yeah.
down in here? I mean, I'd be okay with that. But for winter, I don't know. I think sometimes people need ideas of what to do in Rangeley. It's awful to say, but like snowshoeing, snowmobiling, of course, that's our hot item, skiing, I'm trying to think, cross-country skiing, you know what I mean? It's just different events that, I don't know,
I certainly think they should be one or two, but then it may be intermixed with a
Absolutely.
landscape or a,
Right.
and then I would love if we did one time, we did like the different falls that are in our area, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That, I mean, I know it's
Small
not in
falls,
Rangeley, but.
the only thing would be when you start adding pictures of people. It would have,
No,
that's,
we have to do animals.
okay, yeah, so you can't, an animal cross-country skiing.
No, but I'm just saying,
Or far away,
like, you
or-
could do like animals, I mean, the kids could draw something at the school, you know, what I mean, you
Yeah.
could sponsor like local artists at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
not just that, with at the school and stuff like that, where they could put down, I mean, one of our huge things for snowmobiling is the symbol for the snowmobile club, the moose on the snowmobile.
Mm.
We could do that with the same type of thing, skiing and snowshoeing, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of
Yeah.
different.
So there's a lot, I think, and if you get the community involved, there would be pride in their
More
town.
buy-in, yeah.
Right.
More buy-in, yeah. Okay. Wayfinding signs.
So that's the pretty much same status. We're shooting for some of them, a couple of them by the 4th of July weekend. The posts, pressure treated posts just came in before the last meeting, so Keith is working his way through getting that set up. So that's where those are at. We're trying to get them done as quick as we can.
Okay, so I guess I have a little concern that it could take until Labor Day to get them done. So I'm wondering, we did get $9,000 I believe was what we had asked for, moved into from reserve for this particular project as a match for the grant and also for things. So if there's, I mean, I know you have a resource problem, right? So, like everybody else, but if there's something that maybe could help move it faster, where it was getting some extra manpower in here to help you, I do believe we have money moved from our reserve in for this project.
I'd have to double check on that. I think our match was in kind. Meaning we would put it together and then that was our
That's-
match to
yeah.
the project.
Not money.
I'd have to
Okay,
double check.
So
Is
we
it
went,
someone's got to help you put it in, or is it?
well, that's not true, because now it might be in kind that the 9 grand, I went and asked the selectmen to move 9,000. Now, we thought we would probably use a lot of it not in kind, and we might not need that 9,000. But that, and that was where, and we were talking about maybe 1,000 or 2,000 of that would go to piece of machinery to rent for the day for installation and so forth.
Yep.
But I could have, my memory might be completely off, but I do believe we had asked to move the money from one to another, so there might be a little wiggle room where if you needed $500 worth of somebody's time to get, all hands on deck for a day or two to get it just plugged out, then.
Okay, I'll check on that.
Because it would be a shame if we got all this way that it
Okay.
took this long, if it took. And right now, the way things happen, it could easily keep getting pushed back another week or two, and, that's my 2 cents.
Yep, appreciate that. I'll work on it with Keith.
Anything else on wayfinding signs? New business? Okay. I don't have any other business, so this is gonna be quick, oh goodness. How good is that? Oh, I do have a question, I know Daryl's not here, but Joe, maybe you, know the answer to that. To what I'm gonna ask, Daryl, we had a presentation from the gentleman who was gonna do the attainable housing. And at the last time we talked, I believe Daryl said that they had 3 pieces of property they were looking at. They did get a lot of their approvals for certain aspects of their project. I would like to know what's going on with that, like, have they purchased anything, are they moving forward? Is it just in still study mode? Do you know?
I don't have any update on it. I do know there's a survey that's come out. I don't know if you folks got it. It was by email. There was a survey of businesses, I think, from Camoy Associates.
No, we didn't get it.
Okay. Let me check on that.
That's weird.
So you would probably know if,
I don't have,
something was purchased, though.
yeah, I don't have any update on that.
Okay.
I haven't heard any news since last time.
Maybe we should shoot it
It's hard
out
to tell,
there.
everyone's buying everything.
Yeah.
It's good, there's a lot of building going on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't know, for what it's worth, I don't know if people would disclose if they were close on a deal. They probably would want to keep that,
Yeah.
quiet until it happened.
There are, just so you know, there is a lot of interest from the business community about some of these things, because of course, the issues that we are having, which we have been having, are even more aggravated right now, where we have a lack of employees, but so if we got the employees from away, there's no place for those employees to stay or rent, and so I've had a few inquiries about anything happening about attainable housing and maybe employee housing. I do believe Saddleback is moving forward with the employee housing piece for themselves up there, which would be for their employees. So that would maybe help alleviate some aspect of the need down in the downtown area. But it still doesn't answer, the need that's happening here, so. There is, I've had a lot of people ask me, I'm just passing that along.
That's probably worth sending Daryl a
It's fishing trip.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
My eyesight's terrible.
Back on broadband, have we heard anything from the lawyer, more on the, I know it sounds like you haven't been around, but on the a contract interlocal, if we want?
So she had a question about, yes, I did hear something. There was one document that she had read that she was hoping was gonna be better than it turned out to be for her. It was a coastal town, a set of coastal towns is doing kind of what we're doing. It was Rockport, I think. And her question was, I don't think I got a chance to ask this the other day. The question is, do we have one that we've looked at that we prefer over the other?
No,
Not
Pete
really.
and I were kind of talking about, are we making it more difficult than it needs to be by, because we're looking at these interlocal agreements that had utilities and everything, and ours is really much more simple than that. And do we really need all this stuff in it when all we're really, I mean, if we could just go and have everyone sign the contract with Consolidated, so why does this interlocal agreement need to be so complicated? And
Yeah.
that's what our concern was, are we making it more complicated than we need to when we really just need something that says that these 4 towns want to work together and enter into this agreement, you know?
Right, and sign this paperwork, because then it's not as cumbersome and it helps with the,
And it worries me that she's looking for things that are already done when we really want legal advice as to what's the quickest, easiest way for us to do this. Right? And
yeah, that's correct.
I mean, I understand you don't want to recreate the wheel, but why can't we just have a really simple agreement between us?
I don't disagree. I think it should be simple, but I think it needs to obviously have legal review before we sign it.
Right, that's what I was saying, we could look at that.
Right, because
I'm just
Same thing
wondering,
with the RSU.
it makes me wonder whether she really understands.
well, the RSU is very complicated, but so is a utility district, it's very complicated, and a lot of that down east one, that's kind of the one we've got, it still says interlocal agreement, but they're acting as a utility district, they're running the
Absolutely.
communication. They're in charge, not, and in our situation, we're not in charge, we might be at the end of 20 years when we decide if we sell it or not, but we're not operating the network.
Right.
So, it really should be, if we think it could be as easy as a mechanism to sign the agreement and get the banking situation right and not have to do all this, full, it would have representation obviously from all the plantations, but
Right.
It wouldn't necessarily need any staffing or, it could be
Yeah,
something
I don't
as
think it needs
simple.
to be top heavy with administration, things like that. There's been, in some of the broadband meetings, there's been discussion about this being like, corporation with
Right.
several full-time employees. I do not envision that
Okay,
at
no.
all. You're gonna have a board of directors, it's gonna, I think, be quarterly. You'll have somebody that you appoint to
Right.
be responsible for signing the checks and things like that. If there are any, if there's, when there are.
Well, I think the only thing you really need to do is get a bank account. And then have, it's joint, and then you have your bank account, you distribute that, these payments go to each.
You put your monies in it and then payment. comes
Yeah,
out.
so Consolidated puts the money into this bank account and we automatically distribute that to the 4 municipalities. Nobody would have to write a check for anything. They would have to write a check back to Consolidated to pay the chunks,
Well, if
after
we're
the
doing the
bond.
agreement, it's only one check.
Yeah.
If we're putting together an interlocal.
Yes, it would be
agreement,
one check, yeah. So it'd be one check 3 or 4 times, depending on how many phases we agree to come on to.
The thing is, like, when you open an account, it's just like a business, you have to have certain people that are in place that's eligible to sign.
Right, we would have a board of directors and you'd have to, but,
But it's basically just, if we're doing the interlocal agreement, it's so that one person goes for the bond, not all 4.
right,
So that's really all it's setting up to do, is that this one person is gonna be going for the bond.
and when we looked at the interlocal agreements, it started being like, oh my God, we gotta get a person who's gonna do this, we gotta have, it started to get. But that's because they had so much more involved in their interlocal agreements than we are really asking for.
Yeah, Yeah, one of the things that we've done already is we have a proposal. We've done that jointly. You know, we've got the proposal. A lot of times the interlocal agreement will say you
Right.
have the authority to go for RFP and so forth. It doesn't need to be wicked complicated, I don't think, but you know, if we're gonna go that route, definitely needs to be written by an attorney or
Yeah,
reviewed by an
right.
attorney. Question I have is, there's one town or one plantation left that hasn't answered the non-binding question, and they won't do that until the 26th. Does anybody know how Dallas made out, by the way?
What
No,
was that last night?
It was the 11th, so it was the end of last week.
no.
I'm sure, I mean,
I think
there's
Linda
any-
might have said something if
I
it
don't
hadn't
think there's
asked.
any question that they're not, that it's gonna pass.
So my question is, do we, for the scheduling the quarterly meeting, do we wait until after the 26th?
No,
No,
Okay,
because we need to do it now, because we need to have a presentation in July to the public, and we need the selectmen and assessors to agree to do that. We also need to discuss one of the pieces of this puzzle is interlocal versus separate, right? So that's still an option both ways. The interlocal agreement issue is, we have to wait till the 26th, right, for Dallas to say yes to have a negotiation. Then we have to do another special town meeting for the towns to approve the interlocal agreement. Then the interlocal agreement has to have a special town meeting to approve the bond, which means we missed the August 2nd deadline. Right, so then the versus going alone is a little more complicated as far as 4 people signing a contracted agreement. With consolidated and 4 bank accounts dealing with different things.
but we're also wondering whether we actually have to get a bond or whether we could get a local bank to give us a loan.
Because the interest rates are low.
Mhm.
Yeah, relatively, and they are now, I mean. And that
I
way,
might be able to answer partially that question.
yeah. I know Linda's looking into some more information on that, but
Well, it depends on the bond part, because the bond, you can't pay a bond off early.
That's why we wanna, that's why we're thinking about
And
doing the
most of
banks.
the time, the banks will put a prepayment penalty, on a loan. Unless if you refinance with another bank, because they've committed to that lower rate. And then it's just a matter of what kind of term that they're looking at in comparison to what was.
20-year, it's a 20-year term. So, and then that alleviates
The August 2nd.
the August 2nd problem. The risk is if we don't hit August 2nd bond and we decide bank isn't an option, but we then are not at least 6 to 8 months out. And the supply, all these broadband projects are popping up, so there's issues that what might have taken 12 to 24 months to implement would then take longer.
And
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah,
more.
maybe
and
more expensive
Even
because,
though we're top on the line, we would be at the bottom because they wouldn't consider us a priority.
Well,
not anymore, we
supplies-
missed it, yep,
And supplies gone and the price might even go up, they told us.
right. The good news is they said the price for implementation is going up because the supplies are going up. They have a full supply chain set for a couple of years. The price of the end user's contract for the service is going down. So that's the good news for Rangeley. So, we of course are really interested in having it signed, sealed and delivered by August, and get going. Because we could literally have in 12 months after that, people.
And then one of my
up and
other questions would be, so what happens if the governor decides after the millions of dollars that have been given to the state of Maine? And if she uses those funds to go for broadband? So, and we've already got our stuff in line.
So the answer to
What
that,
is that answer to that?
the answer to that is that most likely we would not be considered if we've already signed a contract for the whole thing. But at the same time, when we did the updates with Peggy Schaefer, from Maine,
Yeah.
she said, we don't know where that money's going. A lot of it's matched, where you would have to put up some money. So then it would end up costing us more money. So a lot of it hasn't been guaranteed, and the stuff that's been guaranteed to Maine isn't as big a number as originally anticipated.
Right.
So if they have 30 bids, and there's people who are really desperate with 0, they would have priority over us. we would meet the criteria though for being underserved, is what it might. You know, because the underserved criteria is now 50 over 1.
But, and none of that's happening until like early as September, so again, that puts us, if we're gonna wait for a grant, that puts
And then
us at
we
the end of the pipeline, and our cost is probably gonna go up, instead of 3.7 million, it's gonna cost us 5.2.
So the only
plus we have
thing
to do
the
half.
grant really accomplishes is making consolidated exposure less. I mean, it makes a little,
Absolutely.
right, so it's only really, if everything goes right and consolidated doesn't go belly up, the only person it's really helping is consolidated. It's not helping Rangeley anymore.
Right,
It's helping us.
we're just upfronting the
Yeah.
expenses that they're gonna have,
Right.
and, yeah.
So why,
Except for the $10 user fee.
yeah, the $10,
That people can choose not to get it.
I mean, they're talking 50 over 50, I think he said $39.99 now. And then $10, so it would be $50 for 50 over 50.
Wow.
All right, so anybody who's gonna get internet is not gonna care about that $10,
You're right.
all right?
You're.
Now, if it was 150, then
It was
maybe,
150,
then maybe we'd be having some conversations,
Yeah.
but,
Because Franklin County's trying to figure out, I think, what they're gonna do with their money too.
Right, that's a whole nother.
Well, there's-
That's another whole story.
we could go to the county commissioners and ask for help. And maybe we could get some money, get a number from Consolidated of how we would buy down that $10.
Right.
But that $10 would most likely be renegotiated downward throughout the course of the contract. They said that they would do that every 3 to 4 years. You know, so that's my understanding of our conversations.
So I think the answer to the lawyer is make it as simple as possible.
And
Right.
legal.
Obviously, she's gonna make it legal, we want it as simple as possible, but really all we need to do is the ability to go as one unit for bond. And the ability to pay those checks every week, meet and review things, and a contingency for making a decision if Consolidated goes bankrupt, right?
Yes,
We need to make a decision.
right, because there are like,
And permissions to sell.
right,
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah.
In listening to this, you know, if there a way we could get back from 20 years and make that system belong to someone else, because our liability in the system is the line. You know, that's why we would even do any of this, get involved, would be to buy the line and have it up on the poles. If that liability ended sooner and they took it over, for instance, so if we had grants that could somehow get us back from 20 years to 5 years and it's paid off, and then they can buy it, or they write the contract so that they have it.
Well, that's what we would do in probably year 15 anyway, is start negotiating with Consolidated and redoing the contract, right?
and then at the end of if life is great and all goes well, and you negotiate with Consolidated or somebody else, there would be a revenue stream then, instead of $0 in or out, we would all be getting a piece of that,
Right, that's sale.
that sale, and it's not like a dollar amount, it's like they would rent the lines from us for
Right.
$5,000 a month or whatever it is, and we get $5,000 a month for that. So, and it can happen in 2 ways, it could happen through the interlocal agreement, or it could happen just
And
the way we
it's
set
not
up
as
the
if somebody-
contracts.
I mean, when people worry about them going bankrupt and stuff like that, it's not as if we've seen it before. Someone is gonna
It's gonna
take
take 'em
over the
over.
damn lines.
Right,
Yeah.
you want
There's
them.
always gonna be somebody
People
that
want
comes in and buys them, yes.
People
So
want
I
them.
don't think it's not a bad investment as well. And at the same time, the only thing is that the fiber will
The
have to
only
be
reason someone
upgraded.
wouldn't
That's
want it-
about it.
Only reason why someone wouldn't want to take it over is if there's some technology out there and we end up with one person on Consolidated because every other person is on this other thing, then no one's gonna wanna take it over.
Right,
But that's okay, that's just that infecting that one person.
right, Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
yeah.
It's the only reason it would, yeah.
And a lot of people are like
Right.
satellite and everything like that. How many times have we clouded over? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have DirecTV. If it's storming or something like that, well, if you're in trouble, that's when you want that crap to work. But anyways, you need another source. And I know that a lot of people are doing away with the home phones and stuff, but you still have the internet going in the house.
But that's how they're gonna,
TVs hooked to it.
they're gonna eliminate the copper to get the phone lines through too, because they can't get rid of the landline,
Right,
right?
right.
That's a federal legal law, right?
As of now, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, as a, Stephen's contract requires he has to have a landline, no matter what.
right.
Yeah.
I actually have a phone that's my old phone, that just plugs into the thing, right? Because if you
Okay.
lose electricity,
I
you
have
can't,
Mhm.
you know, I just keep plugging the old phone versus the one with the
Then the power goes out,
power plug.
and other stuff. My little cordless phones, they don't work when the power's out.
No.
All right, so we're obviously not gonna get to have something from the lawyer back for tomorrow's meeting either.
Which we were saying June 16th, that's why we're asking this. We were gonna have something from the lawyer on
Right.
June 16th.
Let me check with her. I haven't been through all my emails yet today.
No.
so.
So you're not allowed to take days off.
Yeah,
Time
so-
is of the essence here, right? So we,
Well, have
you
you,
know.
but have you guys set as the committee, I mean, I'm not part of the committee or anything, but have you set the expectations of the attorney? Have you basically come out and said, this is what we wanna do, this, because you pay for them to do it, and then they do the research to make sure it can be doing, they can do it, right? We don't need to, I mean, we have certain things that we have to make sure that we're covering the towns for, and that everyone is, but we're going into, you're dealing with towns that already have local agreements with them. I mean, the fire department represents all of them, right? So,
So I don't know the answer to that question, just, you're the one that's
But I'm
talking to
just
the
saying, like-
lawyer, right, have we given that information to the lawyer?
right,
She's aware of what we're working on, we've talked about it. One of the things that is in the mix here, that I know we're trying to do this parallel, I get it, I respect it, I'm trying to work with it, is that we really need to get everybody together to make sure that they want to pursue this. Now, I know the committee does, I get that, but when you get when you do your quarterly meeting, there's feedback here to get from that.
Yeah.
You know, so there may be some changes, drastic changes to the way that they envision this in a local agreement. That's not why it's not in front of you yet, but it's something to consider. There may be some rewrites to
Well,
whatever draft we think makes
I
sense.
disagree a little bit with that, because at least the way I went and arranged the plantation is they agreed that they were gonna have one person delegate to that meeting who's gonna come back and review it and
report back.
report back, and they were given the ability to speak to the assessors. So I don't think that's necessarily gonna be an issue.
Yeah, well, because each person is one person, so even though you have
Okay,
one person that represents them, you have to make sure, I mean, I'm one of 5, and that's all there is, I just have one vote.
Right.
You do have to make sure that everybody is on the same page with
Right.
you, even though you have one person coming
Which is
back,
why we need
they're
to
not
have that.
representing everybody.
Why we can't
They're
do this
basically the
26.
moderator that comes back and says, well, this is what happened in this meeting and this and that. So are we all in support of this? I mean, that's to me
That's
what
why
should
we
be
need that
happening.
delegate meeting.
So
before.
originally, when we were asking about how to do it, they said going forward with an interlocal agreement would be the
Everyone agrees.
proper legal method to do this. Or you could go with your own, right? But
Right.
if you wanted to do it as a one entity, right? But then you were just bringing up an interesting point, right? The fire department is not an interlocal agreement. They signed a contract
They
with
signed a
the
contract
town
with
of
the-
Rangeley.
We have to do it with the state of Maine as well.
Right.
So couldn't, why,
Through the
so then my
county.
brain
Happens
is,
through the county commission.
Right.
it happens through the county commission.
It's executed by the county commission. The counties oversee the plantations on behalf of the state.
Unorganized townships. Because that money
Because
from the
originally-
state goes to the
So-
county.
So if we're going, okay, so I'm going back to the original question, which was we were told no, but maybe it's not no. If Rangeley went for the bond for the whole thing. And then had that county agreement
For
through
the
the
local agreements with each,
local agreements
For contract.
for contract for service.
for contract for service, could we accomplish it that way?
I am not sure. Because what we have to do too is we have to make sure, we also got into a debate with, supporting the cross-country ski. It's not in the town of Rangeley. When it was in the town of Rangeley, we could send money to that, but we can't spend money, and we're not supposed to be able to spend money for other
That's funny.
areas.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? So there's,
That was where the question, why they said, I think, no to start, right? That we couldn't go get the bond for
Right.
3.7 and then.
Yep. Because we'd already got into, I mean, I don't even know if us giving that money where the cross-country ski club, the only reason why I say this is because when they moved from Rangeley to up in Sandy River Plantation, could we donate funds to an agency that wasn't located in the town of Rangeley?
Apparently the answer is yes, because we've been donating to them every year.
Well, the answer was no,
Oh,
but it still gets approved by the voters.
Well, but we also give money.
so we don't give money?
County stuff.
We do.
Oh.
We do, but but like, there was this big, huge legality part of it, and I don't know if that's what it is. If it's in the same aspect of that donation came into.
Right. The ultimate goal is pretty simple, right?
Right.
To have some sort of a contractual binding
Yeah.
agreement between the towns and Consolidated Communications. To make it as easy as possible
Right.
and to get in the time frame that we need to get the time frame into, which is August.
Well, the other thing is, if you did a loan, this is just throwing something if you got a loan for, so say you got a loan for, I'm just thinking of how corporations are set up. If you got a loan for, not through a bond, but got a loan through the town of Rangeley, okay, for the whole thing. And then you get guarantees from the municipalities, so if Rangeley doesn't pay, the municipalities will pay. And I think you could maybe be able to set a dollar amount onto those of what their value is versus what the,
We have a percentage value that Consolidated gave us
Right.
for each.
and I don't know if that can be done, I'm just throwing that out.
But how would that
Yeah.
help us?
Just
the
how that
town
would work,
doing
the
the loan.
bank, the bank would do a loan to the town of Rangeley. And then the plantations would guarantee
Their part of it.
their,
Not
their
portion.
Their portion, because you can put a dollar
Yeah, that
amount
would-
on the guarantee of that.
Would you not be able to do a loan to this group if there wasn't a guarantee from the?
Well, I mean, that would have to be like through the attorneys and stuff, but I'm just thinking about like, so if I have a business, right? And the business is, I don't know, let's say the IGA, just for giggles. Then you have the corporation owns the Rangeley IGA. Then you have, underneath that, you have, while the real estate is owned by,
Yes,
This
I
company,
understand.
it's
Would be
almost
that.
like, yeah.
Yeah, my situation, yeah.
right? And it's just a way to guarantee the payment, because they always look for who's gonna make that payment if this first source can.
Right, so
So
we're,
they'd never be able to make the portion plus Rangeley's portion.
Right.
They would
Well,
only do theirs.
that's the thing.
So the risk would
That's
always.
probably why there's a local agreement where you have one entity where everybody has to sign the document representing that.
Right,
right, so when we're going, if we were
And I
not,
saw that done in New Hampshire, right?
and it was a bond, right?
if we don't do interlocal and we go separate and we went for a bond, 4 municipalities would be asking for a bond for a certain amount of money to make up the total.
Right. And it would be more money, that would be crazy, but that's.
No, it actually would be more.
Oh,
It would be the same total amount, it would just be portioned out, like Rangeley would ask for 1.5 million,
right.
you know, and then it would equal the 3.7, and then it would just be some administration issues, you know, and
Yeah.
there'd be more fees, because there'd be 4 bonds,
Right.
so.
I'm not sure, what I heard from Consolidated in conversation, and it may even be in the proposal, is that the price, I think, would be higher if we went.
No.
No,
No,
price
that's
would
not,
only be higher if one of the people,
one of the people
groups
dropped
doesn't.
out.
One of the person drops out, it would be higher, but if it's 4 bonds, it wouldn't be higher, it's the same thing.
I took it as the same thing as Joe did when they did the presentation, that if you all did it individually,
No,
price
We just
is
asked
this.
them in the meeting,
that they have clarified that numerous times now to us, that the thing would be, Sandy River Plantation says no, right? So that, their portion was 17% of the whole thing. they are not, but they're going through Sandy River, right, to get to us, so. So they're gonna say, okay, so we'll still do it with the 3, but instead of 1.5 is your option, Rangeley, you're now paying 1.7. Dallas is paying,
Right.
you know. The total number would go up from 3, wouldn't go up from 3.7 because you would deduct out Sandy River, but the other 3 piece portions would be a little bit higher in dollar amount.
Because they don't care if the checks are coming in 4 ways or not, they're still gonna get, if we go, each of us go for a bond, it's still gonna be 3.7 million to them, so it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's
The
just
same
if 3 of us
implementation
does it.
plan. Right,
Right.
so if we
So you
don't,
wanna check on that, because like.
I just checked on it in our last
I
meeting.
don't know how many more
Are
times I'm saying.
they saying that with all of you there? I mean, if
Yes.
you're
Yes.
saying with everybody.
All of us were there, and they said if it's forged, it doesn't matter to them.
I'm just saying that that is not how they presented it to us. That is not, they told us that the price would go up if we weren't all participating in it together.
Right, but what they meant by
But we're still
that is that
participating.
what, we're all 4 still participating together, so the price would stay the same, we're just paying for it in 4 different checks versus 1, right? So that's the only difference. Now,
We're all
the
still
price will go up if only 3 of the communities agree to go forward and 1 does not. So that's, now, would it be easier on consolidated for them to get 1 check? Of course it would be.
Right.
You know, that would be easier.
It'd be easier for all of us.
Joe doesn't look convinced, but that's okay. We'll see.
No,
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're gonna be sitting here negotiating with Consolidated at some point, and we're gonna have people from the
I don't
select.
know that we really negotiate with Consolidated. They gave us the contract and we just do the contract.
Well, you guys are gonna have to say,
Right.
is this good? You know,
Right.
your lawyers, the
Right.
lawyers are gonna have to approve it.
Right.
And you might negotiate terms, you know.
definitely need to negotiate.
Well, we already have a generic contract. I'm assuming that's already gone to all the town's lawyers, right?
Probably not.
No,
Not at this point.
because they could be looking at that now.
Same thing if we went to a bank, right? So when 4 municipalities could go to Skowhegan and say, we need a loan for their portion of it.
Right.
And then they could sign 4 different things.
Notes.
Yeah.
Notes, and then Consolidated would pay back each town their portion to cover the notes. Or they could go get a note through the interlocal agreement and have it be one. But either way, I believe the bank would negotiate either way. Yeah, hopefully, that's a true statement. Now, does it get harder for the plantations to negotiate with the bank for a $700,000 loan than it would Rangeley? You know,
Probably.
Right.
It's probably harder with a bank than it is with a bond or with Consolidated, because there's probably
Well,
different.
most of the towns are municipalities, I mean, unless the town's going down to count. And there are towns that are like borderline for that, but if they're managing their money well and stuff, I mean, they're always tax based. So if something goes wrong,
you have to tax
you
it.
have the taxpayers that are gonna pay for it.
Right.
Not that that's your catch 22, but.
Well, that is the risk, so we basically figured out what that is per town and how much you would have to raise the taxes for each town, and in Rangeley's case, it's like 0.
And that's if it happened immediately.
That's if it happened immediately, and we need to
Chances
start
are it's gonna
covering that.
happen in 10 years and it's only.
But I would almost imagine, I don't understand why there wouldn't be an increase, because if Consolidated is making arrangements, because they're gonna have to hire someone to pay each town each month to cover that loan.
Oh, they already have people who do administration.
Right, but I mean, it's just like,
There's having 4 checks instead of,
right,
so it's a pain for them, I mean, they would prefer, obviously,
No,
one.
or we talked about doing a bank account where it's not, it's just one check.
Right,
And each of the towns have to get it from that bank account.
Right.
So it's really not any different for Consolidated. Doesn't have to be.
it can get complicated. I get why the attorneys like,
I get it too, but yeah.
yeah, because everyone wants to make sure that they're covered.
I just don't know, I guess my only concern really, Joe, is how much effort has happened in the the attorney's office. I mean, we haven't seen one thing, and it's been over a month, so I don't think, and then the first question we have is, well, which interlocal agreement do you wanna see?
Yeah, but at the same
And then-
time, why would you spend money for an attorney to do it if we don't have an okay yet? But that's my.
But we already
But we
did, we
already
already
talked about it
talked about it,
with
got it
before.
approved to do that.
Right, all 4 towns said let's start doing it.
Now, actually, the town of Rangeley did, we went and presented and said, instead of sending money on the consultant, can we send money on putting together a rough draft, jet thing, and so far, and we thought it was gonna be $2,000 or whatever it was, and they said yes. You said it. Who is our 5th selectman? Is it Joe or is it Ethna?
Ethna,
With David or,
David,
David or Ethna?
Ethna won by 2 votes.
It was Ethna.
Oh, okay.
She won the 2 votes. It's on the website, the result, all the results. So, I know it's a different committee, but are there any final thoughts before we go to the broadband tomorrow for that discussion? From the
Well, we're-
economic committee to,
Right.
from you folks to,
Well, we're gonna be, what we're discussing tomorrow on the broadband thing is how we're gonna present to you guys. So we wanna get as many answers clarified as possible so that we're presenting and not sitting there giving you 25 more questions to,
Right.
you know, right? We wanna be as clear as possible of, if you go this way, you gotta do this, if you go this way, you gotta do that. And, so between now and the time that we communicate to all of you, the selectmen, we need to get those things answered.
Mm.
And we could spend, you know how our meetings go, we could spend 2 hours tomorrow going back and forth on this and not really having an answer, and I don't know if we would unless we really had a conversation with the lawyer,
Yeah, the lawyers.
so.
It would be nice if we had some dates, a date for that meeting too.
Oh, the assessors meeting, yeah, the
Yeah.
quarterly meeting.
I would like to ask my board if they have a date. I don't want to set a date for them, so I'm thinking Monday I would go to them as an agenda item and say, do you have a date?
We have to
Or
wait
do
till
these
Monday.
couple of
You have
dates
to
work?
wait till Monday? You guys can't correspond without a meeting, without a date?
It really
no,
shouldn't.
that's considered a legal meeting.
It really shouldn't, yeah.
If we start responding back and forth, that's considered an illegal meeting.
Well, what if you got dates from the other people so that you went to your people with the dates from the other people?
Yeah,
That's what you need to do.
Well, I think that's kind of what I just said. I would need to get some dates to bring to them.
Oh,
Monday.
okay, so you need to go to okay, I thought you were saying that you were gonna wait till Monday to get dates and then we're gonna go to the other people with those dates.
No.
No, that's all right. So, okay,
The reason why we're gonna be, I mean, I'm personally gonna be like a dog on the bone, I am not, if all of this is, okay, we'll wait 6 more months and do this, that, then I'm probably gonna say, it's never happening. You know, my guess would be, I'd probably brush myself off and regroup and come back to work, but quite frankly, I think we're all shooting ourselves in the foot, so. We have a time constraint, Joe knows this, I mean, the dates are like impossible on an interlocal agreement. So we really need to decide that, and then if that's the case, we still wanna go interlocal, then that would almost guarantee that we have to go to a bank option versus a bond option. If we wanna continue to move forward in a rapid fashion. You know, so that's, you know, these things really need to be decided. And like you said, we're gonna start going to farther and farther down the list of priorities for these providers, any provider to do these things. You know?
Yeah.
So, that's my 2 cents. Sorry.
No, I feel it. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I really do.
All right,
and you sent out your agenda and everything for tomorrow, right?
I sent out the presentation, I didn't send an agenda, because all our agenda is to discuss the presentation, you did receive that, right? It was the agenda, it was the presentation outline, and then I had backup information for the solution overview and for the interlocal versus,
Does everybody have that?
I sent it to the entire committee, yeah. But that, and then the only one I didn't have information on was the bond versus bank, because I think there was two people looking at some potential options. Rebecca's still clarifying some things, and Linda was trying to get an idea about the banking scenario side too.
That's good.
Okay, so our next meeting, I believe our next Monday open will be June 28th. Does that work for
Works.
9 a.m.? And the meeting is adjourned
9 a.m., right?
9 a.m.
at 9:59. So instead of a really quick meeting.
That's a good discussion that would maybe not have to happen again tomorrow.
Is that your motion?
My motion to adjourn the meeting at
Second
9:59.
that, second.
All in favor, I'm sorry, there you go.
That's good, keep me honest.
Okay.